Today we have one of the most improved players in Tampa, Gabe Fuller. How you doing, Gabe?
I'm doing well, man. Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. Shane, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, good, man. I'm stoked. What's up, Gabe?
Gabe, why don't you let's dive into the questions right away. Tell us what initially drew you to the game of poker. A little background, how you started.
So this is kind of interesting. The 2003 poker boom, I was like 10 or 11 years old, and my sister had just gotten a new boyfriend, and he came over, and they were kind of being degenerates, smoking cigars, doing a bunch of underage stuff. It's, really fun, I guess. And he's watching the WSOP main with like Moneymaker, Ivy, all these guys, and we had to like share like a rec room, so I was in there watching it. And it's got the whole saloon vibe, the music, Lon McCarran, production value's amazing, and I had no idea what I was watching, but it seemed super cool. And we would watch and go outside, play for like pennies, nickels, dimes. Had no idea what I was doing, but it was super fun. And that was like my intro into poker. And that happened for probably like several weeks that we were watching, because they would, I don't think they would play like every night. It would be like a weekly session. Yeah. And so that was kind of my introduction.
So you're watching WSOP and playing at the same time at 11 years old.
Yeah, that was my intro, and it was just, again, we didn't know what we were doing, but I was young. My sister was kind of there. She let me like hang out. It was pretty cool.
Shout out to your sister. How old is your sister, and what's her name?
Her name's Brett Fuller, and she is 6 years older than me. So
okay,
she's like 36, 37.
Uh-huh.
So kind of fast forward, right? I don't play for like 10 years. I'm in college. I played ultimate frisbee in college. This is kind of repping my kind of poker group / frisbee group. And
interesting name. Who came up with this?
Some of the old school guys in like the 90s. It's
was it a joke, or this is legit?
It's a mix. It's
okay.
They're so it's like a coastal school, right? So like the seamen, men of the sea, correct?
Right.
On boats, doing boat stuff, right? And there was also kind of the fuck your opponent's vibe. They did all sorts of interesting stuff. But after practice one day, I got invited to play poker, and they invited me a few times, and I was busy. I had to like drive off campus, drive back. But one day I just decided, yeah, I'll come out. And I came out, and we had this house called the Wooddale House, and it's a super like run down, shitty, pizza boxes everywhere, beer bottles, blunts.
Hell yeah.
Just everybody's a degenerate. And
this is like the movie Old School.
Oh, dude, it's super old school. And they just started playing poker, and they're running videos of like Tom DeWan running these insane bluffs for like $100,000 in the TV, and we're all just gambling. None of us know what we're doing. And I kind of just fell in love with the game. It seemed super cool, good way to socialize, hang out. It's also a lot of strategy, a lot of math. I was kind of inclined towards math as a kid, even though I never really wanted to pursue anything like some career in math, right? But I was kind of drawn to like strategy, competitiveness, stuff like that. And that's where I really fell in love. And from there, we were just playing like once a week. Then after a while, it turned into tournaments. Remember our first tournament, everybody shows up and it's like silent, and the tension is super high. And we're playing for like $10 buy-ins, right? But when you're in college, we're broke as fuck, right?
$10. I don't know if you mentioned this, but college was Florida?
North Carolina.
North Carolina. You probably mentioned it. Okay, so North Carolina. This is where you grew up?
Correct. Yeah. Okay. Wilmington, North Carolina, UNCW. Born in Durham, North Carolina, but yeah, Wilmington, I lived most of my life there. And
any poker rooms in North Carolina?
Just Cherokee, and that was like 6 hours away, so I couldn't really even casually go there. Like DC was closer to drive to than Cherokee.
Okay. It's cool to picture the like intense vibe of the friends. When I played like $10 tournaments with like my dad, they were just there to like have fun. But I like the idea of you guys being like super sweaty, because like winning $70 could like make your week so much nicer.
And question,
yeah.
why did it get intense when you guys played tournaments? Do these guys have any experience like on the felt in the casinos or anything, or you guys were all on the same level? Like that's it. That's the poker that you were presented to play at the time. Was that home game? That's it. Or were they in the trenches like us now?
No, nobody really in the trenches. A couple of people might have gone to a casino once or twice, but I don't even know if they even like played much poker. I think it was more so built up through like the media we kind of digested, right? Tournaments were around. This was 2014-ish, somewhere around then. Tournaments were felt pretty big, and something about the do or die aspect of tournaments, I think, has kind of built that tension as well. Cash game, you just buy in again or whatever, or you ask your buddy to loan you $10, and then you pay him back next week after you hopefully win that money back. But the tournaments, it's just do or die, and so that tension was just there right off the bat. And we're all competitive. We hadn't really played tournaments before, so there's this kind of whole, it's open field, right? Anybody could be good at a tournament.
When you say we're all competitive, what background did you have beside the frisbee? Did the frisbee were you playing frisbee competitively at that point or no?
Yeah. So this was like club ultimate frisbee in college.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I had played, every one of us had played other sports like basketball, football, really anything. I mean, just you get a bunch of guys together, they're just going to get competitive about anything. I think
100%.
that's
100%. I feel like athletes, anybody that's succeeded in any discipline they've done before, especially like football players, anybody that took it to that level, like Alex Foxen comes to mind. On one of the podcasts, he mentioned how his training was like grueling, and he was like a success. He was going to go pro, but then he got injured. But anybody that takes any discipline to another level, they have not easier, but they have that competitive drive, and they know what it takes mentally to get to a certain level. Even like it translates to poker, and they normally succeed. And look at Alex Foxen. But anyway, so North Carolina college, the home game, playing for $10, $10 buy-ins. When did the move happen from North Carolina to Florida, and why? And how did the poker progress from there?
Yeah, so I'll kind of take you through a little bit of the poker story, and it'll overlap a little bit with the question you just asked. We went on a spring break one year, and we talked about like online poker. I think Bovada was what was really available to us at the time. So I fired like a $25 deposit on the Bovada and was playing like $5 double up turbos, which were like the coolest thing ever. The first time I played an online turbo, all the boys are like behind you getting hammered. They're sweating you. There's 5 left, 4 left. Oh, we got like 5 big blinds. We double up. Everybody like does a beer bong. Just get super stoked, and then you win your like $5, and it's just like a party, right?
When you played online, did you feel the difference between like staring at somebody in the eye, playing them live, and then you go online, there's no live tells or anything, there's some timing tells, but did you feel a difference? Like, what was your exposure to online at that point?
At that point, it was certainly in some sense easier. You're just getting more hands, right? And so the action is just, the pace is really high. At that point, I had no like live tells weren't a thing for me. So I'm really just getting to play more hands, and because I'm competitive, it's just like, I don't know, it felt like I was just being closer to the action.
At that point, did you know any of the math of the game as far as like pot odds, counting outs, all the basic stuff? Did you learn any of this, or are you just clicking buttons, you're trying to match your hand to the board? Like, what kind of studying have you done at that point, or are you just playing the game, no studying?
Yeah, pot odds were definitely a thing. We're so competitive that you almost want to learn like really quickly, and especially when you start hearing the commentators. All that stuff was, I don't want to say like necessarily new, but
2014, it was not that new. I mean, if you say 2006, 2007, it was kind of new, but 2014, there was like a lot of few books out there. Some like dove in the math, like Sklansky. Super System was out, of course, but Super System didn't dive in like hard in the math. Couple of the pros had books, like Negreanu had some training stuff, Phil Hellmuth, all the pros they had. Did you read any books at that point?
No books. It was all videos, all YouTube. I think Doug Polk at some point around then started firing out a lot of content, and I just ate that up.
You know what? That came to mind. When did Doug Polk come around, Shane? Do you know?
I don't. Probably 16, 17 when he came into like online
Yeah, I was
content,
gonna say
but,
14.
I'm sure
I
he's
don't
playing
think.
before that.
Sorry, go ahead.
I just know he's playing far before that, but probably 16 or 17.
I'm looking it up now.
What were you saying, Gabe, about you were starting a story there? You were playing in the frat with the boys, basically.
Yeah. And so, that was just super hype. So really, once you get older, it's just harder to get games together. I couldn't really drive to a casino, so I'm playing more online. Every now and again, I bank a tournament for like $800. I think my biggest bank was like $1,300 or something like that. And I would think I'm like the best in the world. I'm going to quit everything I'm doing in life, play poker. And then, within 2 or 3 days, because of my terrible bankroll management,
it's gone.
1-2 cash and degen my, $1,800 roll down to like $150 and then have to like grind it up again.
Standard.
Oh yeah, super standard.
Mid 2015, by the way, just looked it up. So
I won like a $3 ACR tournament when I started early for like $1,200 from $3. And that that went quick too, because I was like, all right, let's play some 20s now, some 50s, and it's just gone in like 4 days. Yeah,
that's crazy. So I had a job at Five Guys, and I worked my way up. I was the general manager for 2.5 years. Worked there altogether for 5 years, and a couple of my buddies there, my AGM at the time, he's like my best poker friend ever. Shout out to Dakota Stevens. He played Ultimate as well. Not for like too long, but enough. And he was big time poker player. And so, we would always talk poker. I would go on these bouts of playing online, but I would take like 6 to 8 month sabbaticals every now and again, because, you just go through the grind. You realize it's like hard to beat. I didn't have a solver. I'm not really like studying at all. So
there were no solvers before pre 2015. Solvers weren't even a thing.
Well, at this point, it's probably like 2018, 2019.
Did you? When did the move happen to Florida, North Carolina to Florida? By the way.
Yeah. So basically, I didn't get a promotion to district manager from my GM spot. I kind of like went into this depression because I didn't know what to do with my life. I didn't know if I wanted to keep working at Five Guys. And my buddy, who's been my lifelong best friend, he was like, "Hey, man, I kind of want to move out of North Carolina." And I was like, "Okay." And we were thinking about maybe going to LA, maybe going to Phoenix, maybe going to Tampa. So we took an Airbnb out here with a couple other friends, and we had a blast. So I knew there was a casino down here, and I built up.
So why Tampa? Did any of the guys, have you ever visited Tampa before? And before that, you were GM at Five Guys, so you were making good money. So you had a bankroll to actually dive into poker if you wanted to.
Yeah. I had saved up a decent amount. And Florida, we had been to northern Florida near Florida State. It wasn't exactly. It was like the Florida-Georgia border, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like we stayed because we were playing like Ultimate Frisbee tournament for spring break. We stayed somewhere in southern Georgia. And then we came down for a tournament at FSU. And so we'd gotten a little bit of dose of Florida. Florida was fun. I knew that Florida had good poker. I'd heard that from several people. And, being in the kind of sunshine and the warmth was what my buddy wanted. He wanted to move away from the winter. He was like, I never want to experience winter ever again,
How bad is it in North Carolina? Like, how cold does it get?
It's really not bad, but he had lived up in like Seattle. He also he just beat cancer for the second time at that point, and he
what form?
It was childhood leukemia first, and the second form was kind of like colorectal.
Oh my god!
Yeah, wow.
Crazy. He's an absolute unit. Wow. Shout out to Eric in the other room. But basically, like some of the radiation like cracked his hands, so the temperature, if it gets too cold, like his hands will just like start bleeding, right? So he was like, "Yeah, let's go south." I was like, "All right."
He's your roommate now?
Yeah.
Wow! Shout out to him,
dude, total beast. And we decided to come down here, check it out for 10 days, and after like 3 days, I absolutely we're moving down here. This is awesome.
That was what year? That was 2018.
No, this was 2022. March 2022.
Oh, recent.
Yeah, very recent.
I moved like January 2022, right before you. Yeah.
Oh,
Before
wow.
that, I lived in Vegas, and the climate kind of sucked. The air was like super dry, and I'm from Ohio, so we had like different weather. But I had the same opinion, man. Florida's pretty sick with this.
You know,
These
I like
beaches and the weather.
I see that, the dryness in Vegas, but they call Florida the Sunshine State. Vegas is the Sunshine State. Sunny
Yeah.
like throughout the year. Here,
hated it.
summer it
Yeah.
rains. It's like tropical, so you don't see the sun in summer. It's like 3 hours and then start raining. Vegas is the sunny state because it's sunny the whole time. You barely see any clouds.
That's
so
the
anyway,
brutal part. It's just pure blue sky and always
yes,
100 degrees and
can't
always
believe
dry
we're
skin.
talking weather. But
Yeah.
so you started in the home game the whole time in North Carolina. You're playing frisbee competitively. Frisbee, there's no money in frisbee, right? It was just a competitive game. It was just fun. Was there any aspiration with that or no?
No, not really. Just another conduit to be competitive. I think, there's people imagine ultimate frisbee is I'm throwing frisbee to a dog or something like that, or I'm running around barefoot like a bunch of hippies. And competitive ultimate frisbee is like legitimately like a highlight. You look at frisbee highlights on YouTube, you're going to see some bonkers athletic plays. Like it's unbelievable.
What is the goal of the game? You have two teams and they're trying to put the frisbee in what? It's kind of like I see a net, kind of like basketball. It's a net made out of chains, right? Or no?
That's disc golf.
That's frisbee golf. Yeah.
Frisbee golf. So, okay, so what is competitive frisbee? What is the goal of the game?
Imagine 7-on-7 football, and so you're trying to score in an end zone, right?
Mhm.
And if I'm the quarterback and I throw the frisbee to somebody, they catch it. They're now the quarterback, right? So they can't just start running around. They have to be stationary. And so
it's kind of like a basketball. You can't move with
Yeah.
the frisbee.
You can pivot. Yeah.
exactly.
Interesting.
So basically, everybody kind of has to work around the person with the disc. There's an imposed shot clock. So you basically have like 10 seconds to throw it, and you just keep moving it around until you score in the end zone. And then there's like a kickoff where we just throw it back to the.
And how much contact is there in that game? Like as far as defense, can they contact you like body to body contact or no? You can't touch the player.
We embrace contact more than other teams, so we were certainly more physical.
Optional contact.
Yeah, coming from
what is considered a foul in competitive frisbee?
You got to give them a little bit of space. Usually it's like a disc length when they have the disc. And then when you're away from the frisbee, theoretically you can't touch the opposing player, but we would body position ourselves. So we force them in a certain direction to make the throws more challenging. And if somebody's going to cut into you, there's going to be some contact, right? So, I think most ultimate frisbee players would acknowledge there's, some leeway for that. And we were like really intensely defensive team. Like we built our team on playing deep, being athletic, and coming from other sports. I think that kind of helps as well. A lot of people who play frisbee, they kind of just start like in high school, especially in the northern schools, and they almost pseudo like recruit players who played ultimate. But we would just recruit players who played all other sports and just turn them into ultimate frisbee players.
Here, I have a short here to share. Oh, that guy, Lou.
There's a guy named Jack Williams. He's like the best player in the world. Plays for New York Empire right now, and he was my teammate at UNCW. So he picked his highlights.
This music might get you.
It very rarely works.
Yeah, some of the athletics involved is insane. Okay, so let's move on from frisbee. Okay, so you moved to Tampa in 2022. When did you start playing at the casino and Hard Rock? So 2022, you move here. First of all, like what job did you get?
This was my job. I came down here and said, I'm going to transition out of food and I'm going to play poker full time.
2022, you took the plunge. That's it.
Yep.
Mostly cash games or just right into tournaments?
Mostly cash. Tournaments was pretty sporadic. I think the flexibility of cash was pretty appealing. I'd studied a little bit of tournaments, not running like solvers or anything, but just watching like Jonathan Little videos and stuff like that. But um, general just poker theory, I think, just applies to cash, and it's being a more consistent form of income. I didn't need the variance with my bankroll at the time.
Yeah.
This is kind of crazy, actually. So I had $8,000 saved up for like just pure 2-5. And I had like money that was kind of like a stop loss amount. I had more money than that, but I didn't really like want to dip into that.
Yeah.
And my first session, I played for about 15 minutes and lost $2,700.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So
Question before we dive into that. So you had the 8,000 set aside for 2-5, and you had some money. So you had separate bankrolls, basically.
Yeah.
You moved here. That's it. You took the dive. You said, I'm going to do this professionally. You start playing 2-5. So you lose 2,700 first 15 minutes. What was the thought process? Like, you're like, fuck, I better get a job soon, or what's?
No. I wasn't even going to think about a job until I hit that 8K point. I definitely had a realization, like it was pretty shocking. And it was crazy because I mean, I flopped like ace king. I ran into a set, right? Flop top pair. I got 2-pair over 2-paired, and then I had kings on a queen queen X flop and just stacked off. And I was like, wow, like that happened so quick. I mean, I played enough poker that I know that's not normal, but I'm like,
That's a slap in the face to be to right out of the gate to face that adversity right away. But before before to 2020, sorry to cut you off, but I just want to get a timeline. Have you had any success in poker? Have you made like a little bankroll from poker, or was all the money from the job? Like, were you tracking any results? Did you have a clue where you're at as far as hourly? Did any of that happen before 2022, or this is 2022 was the first time you play volume and start tracking? Did you start tracking any years before?
So I'd had sporadic success online. I mean, never consistent, but I knew that there were elements of my game that were good, right? But there were elements that were missing that I think kind of create the entire fabric of your game. And so I was like, okay, can't beat online. And there was like a home game. It wasn't with any of the frisbee players. It was just a home game with general people who lived in Wilmington. And I think I started to beat that game pretty consistently. It's interesting when you develop a lot of skills and a lot of hobbies like guitar or poker or a variety of other things. Sometimes stepping away and then coming back, you all of a sudden kind of let go of a lot of you reset, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'd done probably the year prior was I hadn't played like any poker for I think probably 8 months. I was just focused on my job. Again, I was focused on trying to like just be the best general manager I could be, help my store. And when I learned about the home game, I started playing it, and I just came back and I felt so much more in tune with poker. Like I almost had an awakening, so to speak. I mean, I'd been still paying attention to poker, watching videos and stuff like that, but I hadn't really been grinding. And stepping away helped me out a lot. And so I came to this home game and I started beating it. And I mean, I was up not too much, probably only like 2 to 3 grand. But I mean, we're playing 1-2, and we're playing once a week. It's with the variants and stuff, it's going to be hard to just.
So that was the first success as far as upswing. So you were beating. You're starting to make money. So that was it. That was like 2021 before the move to Tampa.
Yeah, 2022, somewhere like kind of mixed in all that.
Did you have a plan B when you moved to Tampa, or like let's say you had the 8K, let's say you go broke, did you have a plan B, like get a job and leave poker? Like, were you hesitant, or you burn all the bridges and the boats and you're like, that's it, I'm going no matter what?
I had like 3 to 4 potential things. I didn't want to go back to food. I was prepared to do it. Wouldn't have been ideal. There was like a trucking company in Lakeland that my buddy was like a regional manager for, and he was like, I could hook you up with a job that makes like 50K a year. I was like, okay. I thought about becoming a dealer as well. Then there's like 1 or 2 more other opportunities that I thought about, but I didn't really want to focus on anything other than poker. I've been told to maybe like drive Uber, just get some side gig. But when you take time away from things, it's easy to, I mean, poker, and I hadn't really touched on this, poker was my dream, right? Like once I fell in love with it, I was like, dude, doing this for a living would be unbelievable. And so it was always on the back burner of my mind. And I didn't even want to think about getting a job. That wasn't an option. So I was all in on poker, and there was no turning back. I was
So in
just,
response, you zero plan B. That's it. You were like, I'm gonna succeed in poker. Okay, how was the first year, 2022? How was the result at the end of the year? Were you up? Were you down? I think 2022 is the first time I see you in Vegas, and you end up at my table. Was it 2022 or 2023? I remember.
it was 2023.
I knew when I saw you in Vegas that you had something. Like us, grinders. I've been around for a long time, so I know from the first 5 minutes of playing with somebody if they're gonna have a future or not, if they're capable of not, from their behavior at the table, how much focused they are, their mannerism, the way they play the game. We kind of have an idea. So when I saw you in Vegas, I'm like, okay, this kid has something. He has it, whatever it may be. It's the focus at the table, the being calm in big spots. I think I saw you in Vegas. I'm like, yeah, this kid is going places. So how was 22 results wise? And we're gonna talk. I'll pull up your Hendon Mob here and see what happened in 2023, the little upswing.
So
Yeah, how was 22 in general?
I should add that my second session I lost $3,200.
No way.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh my
Max
God.
Payne.
Yeah.
Did you
So
keep playing 2-5?
I kept playing 2-5, and my next 5 sessions I won, and I made back the $3,000 that I lost in the second session. And I'm telling you, for like 3 months, it was like win 2 sessions, lose 2 sessions, win 2 sessions, lose 2 sessions. Like I was
straight.
just
One
couldn't.
step forward, one step back, basically.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I think so. I played like the Sunday bankroll builder at the end of July and shipped it for like 6K. That was like one of my first scores. It looks like second, 250.
Carl, could you hold control on your keyboard and scroll your mouse wheel forward? It'll zoom in. I can't really exactly see these. There we go. Cool.
Okay, let's talk about your first score, July of 2022. Is this when you transitioned to tournaments, or you were just like dabbling, some tournaments, some cash?
I was dabbling, and so when I bought in on 2-5, I was buying in for like a K. So when I saw a $200 tournament, I was like, okay, $200, like I can lose 200.
It's a fifth of a buy-in.
Yeah, that's just not a big deal. So I think I was attracted to those, not like the other dailies. The weekend tournaments, I think, had a little bit more allure because I could actually like win money, instead of just winning like 1,500 on a 150 buy-in, where I would just rather be playing cash. So yeah, I just would shot take kind of some of those like weekend tournaments, and I definitely started having more success. And I didn't distinctly walk away towards tournaments until I would say early 2023, where I was like mostly devoting my time to that, or at least playing cash only to supplement like my tourney buy-ins, so that I could just really try to bank a few tournaments, build up my role, keep studying, keep working, and then kind of develop my game from there.
That was pretty quick breakthrough. I see 2022, you made 10K. So here, this is when people haven't figured out anything yet. They're just dabbling a little bit. And you played the first tournament. It was late. So 2022, you make 10K. 2023 comes, and now you made 145K, which is for first year, it's impressive. Like that should tell you something that you kind of figured it out a little bit. Let's see what 2023 looks like. 2023, you start playing semi-consistent here. You got first bankroll builder, you got second for 6K. Then
I chopped one of those for you, by the way.
Oh, I remember.
Nice.
Then you got here. Let's see. Let's pull up the names. Oh, there it is. Yours truly. Yeah, we chopped right there. You see it?
I do see it. We should have not chopped, and we could have played the heads up match, and I could, one of us could lord it over each other.
Then you have a first for 6K right after, like not even 2 weeks. Then second for 3K, triple special, the triple stack. Then you got the deep stack event 1. You got 23rd for 3K. So here I see consistency now in 2023. You're consistent every month. You're scoring 3, 4, 5K almost. Triple 30, you came first. Let's see who came second and third. Oh, Lana Nestor. Shout out to Lana. She has a question for you. She came third. Unknown player.
Gabe, were you ever did you ever consider like getting back for any of this, or is this all on your own dime the whole time?
All on my own dime. I have thoughts on like backers. I don't. It's not super fleshed out, but I like having all of myself, especially with how I play. I'm like so aggressive that I almost don't feel responsible if I'm not responsible, but I don't want someone else's money in my own pocket if I'm playing the way I'm playing, because I just take so many risks and I kind of go for it so much.
Yeah.
And I'm generally speaking, I don't like to owe money to people. I really stay away from like lending money, from taking money. I want to be responsible for everything, right? I want to be accountable for everything. And if it's like not on my shoulders, then I don't know, there's kind of a weird glitch in my brain that doesn't, I don't know, that makes me feel uncomfortable.
There was a time where Tampa ran a 1700 main, and me, you, and Clyde were at the same table, and you like sat down after like already busting, and it was like the first hour. It was like early, and you're like, this is bullet 2, and then maybe within like 45 minutes, you hero caught Clyde with a pair of aces, and then ended up busting again. And you're like, I'm going back to the rebuy line. So pretty quick, you did like 3 $1,700 buy-ins within like an hour or two. Do you remember this?
Yeah, I fired 4 bullets in that tournament, actually.
Okay. And that was all of yourself. Did you have like a large bankroll at the time, or was that a large piece? Because that's like 5K in like 2 hours.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think. I remember being fairly comfortable. Now, I'll take you a little bit on my 2023 journey, because it really peaked towards the end, and I went through.
We're going to come to that. We're going to discuss your first biggest score, but
Okay.
I think this was before that.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, like he hadn't had the score yet.
So up before even summer of 2023, I had 3 separate 15K downswings, one of which was a 24K downswing. And I'm telling you, man, I like started off, I was just a bad reg, barely profitable. I started to fix some of my mistakes, not paying off like river raises, making more folds pre, being a little bit less ambitious, I guess, more controlled, more reined in. But I was just running like crazy, and I don't want to just like start talking about like hand histories and bad beats and stuff, but in my first 18 months playing professionally, I had 3 times where I set over set an opponent and they rivered quads. And I did the math on like hands per hour live, and that was like 10 years worth of variance that happened in 18 months that you're not going to get back.
Yeah.
And, tournaments, there was like my 24K downswing was partial to going out to Vegas. I lost $8,800 in buy-ins. But it's almost deceptive to talk about that, because when you're taking higher buy-ins, like I fired 12 bullets, I think, while I was down there. And
the average was like 700
cash. And
you didn't sell any action for Vegas?
No
action. Yeah, it's tough when you're not selling action. You're taking the risk by yourself. So let's talk 2022. Did you show profit in cash? Because you didn't play that many tournaments, only 10K earnings in tournaments. And I'm sure most of it were buy-ins. So let's say break even, slightly negative in tournaments. But was there any profit in the 2.5?
So I counted my win-loss for 2022 in and of itself, and I was like right at break even.
Not bad.
Yeah. And
so I think it's just once you start breaking even, you kind of figured some things out. And then 2023, what happened in 2023? Probably some variance. And obviously I feel like poker is kind of like Neo in the Matrix when he's trying to jump the building. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with the scene. It's about, how Morpheus tell him that you got to believe. In tournaments, you have to kind of like trust yourself, because there's a lot of doubt in poker, especially in tournaments, because you start questioning. I always say you start questioning everything. When things aren't going your way and you're making bad decisions and you're mentally not there. So then once you bank that big score, it gives you that confidence that, oh, I can do this. I can win an actual tournament, no matter how big the field or no matter how good the field is. So 2023 comes, there was a shift in your mentality that I can do that. I'm qualified enough to close out a tournament. And when you did close out a tournament, how did that switch your mental game? Because we can look at the score here. That's your highest score, actually. The 400 no limit hold'em at Hard Rock. 992 entries. Gabriel Fuller at the top, 54K. And no chop. That's gangster stuff. And Ross Corliss comes third. Shout out to Ross.
Also, shout out to him.
He's
and
awesome.
Bunkley came out 7th. Bunkley is next on the pod, by the way. He gave you a lot of props on. Oh, I came 14th. I don't even remember that. So yeah, tell us about this tournament. How was your mental state? What did you do different? Did you run good? Did you play good? Were you like super short when down to like 2-3 tables? What happened in this tournament?
I'll give you a brief lead up because I don't want to spend too much time, but I do think it's important. So in these downswings I had, I was really being introspective and reflective on like what was happening. And being around poker so much, everybody is just talking about how bad they run, and they're just, and it's a way of like release, right? Like therapy. Can you believe
We've all done it. Nobody's immune. We all talk about bad beats, even no matter how much of a veteran you are.
For sure. And I started to just like look at the macro aspect of poker and just thinking about all these people that I was talking to. And I realized like I didn't want to be any of them, right? I want to be someone who's like, if I'm running bad, I'm just going to work harder, right? And so I was like, okay, I need to study more because if I'm going to run bad, I need to lose less money. And if I'm going to run good, I need to make more money. So that's the way I was kind of like looking at it from a mental state.
That's a great outlook.
Yeah, and so like 15K downswing, boom, pull myself out, grind. Another 15K downswing, pull myself back out, grind. 24K downswing, just brush it off. And as I start to study more, and this kind of led into you asked me a question that you sent me ahead of time about my most memorable poker moment, and I had gotten a solver sometime after summer. I had gotten some subscriptions to CLP and pokercoaching.com. I've been grinding those like a lot. But
which solver did you get, by the way?
I got Pio solver. So I haven't touched any other solver.
Okay.
And I really like Pio because you can just manually input. So
yeah,
if you put in the wrong inputs, you're going to get some, like, you need to be careful, right? But that's the cool thing where I think I can start to input ranges and decisions that my opponents are going to make that I think are being made by, the opponents we play and not just GTO robots. So I remember I had a phone call with my mom, and I'm like out on our porch at my apartment, and she was talking to me about how things were going. And I just told her, I was like, I was building this confidence. I was starting to make plays. I was starting to like see, you're talking about the Matrix. I was starting to like see the Matrix code, right? And everything. And I know that sounds like corny.
The green screen. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just starting to anticipate things. My confidence was just super high. When you study a solver and you start to see the way it responds in certain ways, you just get so much more comfortable in some of these like scary spots. And I was just starting to like leverage a lot of that and put more pressure on my opponents. And it got to the point I was talking to my mom on this phone call, and I was like, it's like the breakthrough is coming, and it's going to be big. And I've like never been more confident in my entire life. And I know
that was when that was mid 2023 or beginning of 2023.
This was probably a week before I shut that tournament. This was maybe within the week. And that tournament, I fired 11 bullets, right? And when I was firing, I was like, I didn't feel any mental stress at all because I knew, I was like, my decisions are good. I'm not worried about it. And, I need to finish 10th in that tournament to make my money back. It was pretty fortunate because I fucking shipped it. You know what I'm saying? And the whole time I just felt comfortable, right? And I remember when I got sat down, I had built up a big chip stack with my 11th bullet, thank God. And like you were on my left, some other guy who was like pretty aggressive was on your left, and then some other guy with like 300K on him who's a good player was on his left. And I'm like, oh my god, this table draw fucking sucks, man. Like
This was day one.
this was day two. This was
Day
day
two.
two.
Day two.
And I was like, okay, well, you know what? This is just something I got to handle, right? New context, new situation, got a lot of chips. I just need to play this the appropriate way. I can't just sweat because it might be hard and get like some anxiety. I just need to play good poker and be reflexive, be adaptive. And I was, and I didn't really even play many pots. I kind of like grinded down a little bit as the blinds got up to me. But slowly the table dynamics started shifting. I think you got moved, another guy busts, and all of a sudden I start opening up my game, being a little more aggressive. And the whole time I was just playing each hand. There was no, looking up at the ladders, right? Oh, when am I gonna, make my money? It's like, okay, I just need to grind. Next
That's
hand.
important. That's important. Being in the moment.
For
Being
sure.
in the moment. Okay, let me cut you off because we have a lot of questions still. I'm still on the first question. So 2023 comes, the whole mindset shift. You're doing some solver work. You believe in yourself. You're now jumping from one building to the other. And what you said is really important. You said I didn't play that many hands. I feel like the times I sit back and just let the game come to me, I do way better than I'm trying out there and just like forcing things. The times you just sit back, relax, and just let the game come to you, you do better. So 2023, you basically crush. Let me ask you about this. Tell us a little bit about the signature Gabriel. 1 second, I'm going to share the screen here.
I think from
Tell us about this, the Arabian Crusher. What's going on here? When did this start, and why hiding the mouth?
So I started to learn more about live tells, and it wasn't necessarily like deliberate. It was kind of like a casual comment made during some player in some hand analysis video, and he was talking about like looking at someone's jugular, and I started to do it. And I remember this cool moment where I'm in this big hand. I think it was blind versus blind, like 5-handed, and this guy runs this bluff, and I like overbet the river, and he jams. And I was like, dude, guy jams river after I overbet. Like, that's talk about an under bluff spot. Like, this is insane. And I had a strong hand. I'm like, what the hell? Like,
Was he capable? Was he a capable player or a fish?
I wasn't sure. And
You don't know the guy.
Yeah, I remember. I was like, okay, I'm gonna look at this guy and just check out. And I look over to my left. He's sitting right to my left. And I look at his neck, and his neck is just like, it's like pumping like a jackhammer. And I was like, man, the line kind of doesn't make sense. I knew I couldn't rely on one variable, right?
Yes.
Like, the line doesn't make a lot of sense. He's a younger guy. He looks like he could be capable. I hadn't played too many hands with him. I'm like, man, he just seems nervous. And I was like, and I kind of, right when I knew I was going to call, I still waited probably like 30 or 40 seconds just to not like stare, turn, and then immediately like let him.
You almost made your decision right there by seeing his jugular jumping out of his neck.
Yeah.
And it's almost like I put people in those spots. Like, I know they're so uncomfortable and I know my decision already, but just leave it there just to make them as uncomfortable as possible. So they don't try to like, if in case they're bluffing the next time, they know the spot is going to take too long.
Yeah.
So anyway, you look at the jugular, you make your decision that you're folding.
No, that I was calling, and I called, and the guy just had a bluff. He had like a missed backdoor flush draw or something.
Oh, okay.
And
because the jugular can mean two things, right? It could mean strong and weak.
Yeah.
And it depends if it stays there or not. Okay. But
I kind of pieced together other things, right? Like the line came into play as well. I wasn't just going to use his neck pulsing as like some reason to just to individually call. And so a lot of like, I'm almost like too self-aware sometimes. So
these are spots it's almost like a coin flip in your head. Then the physical tells will make you lean towards either call or fold. These are close spots that you really don't know what to do, and then you look for a physical tell. If your call was like call or fold are 50-50, it becomes like 60% call and 40% fold from the physical tell. And some players don't give you anything. Some players give you some tells. And sometimes you make a mistake by, if the player is capable, sometimes they give you reverse tells. I was watching shout out to what's her name? She has a blog, and she was talking about physical tells and how to send reverse tells, but her reverse tell like is not really reliable. I forgot what she actually said. It was very like beginnerish. I'll look for the video later. But anyway, so you made the call. He was folding. This is what sparked to hide your jugular and neck.
Well, I started thinking about my own potential tells, and I realized that early on in tournaments, I'm not nervous. I'm pretty composed. I feel comfortable. But then as the tournament gets closer to the end, or we get to day twos, things start to matter a little more. And I noticed that like I myself was getting nervous. Even some like small spots. I run a small bluff, like blind versus blind. All of a sudden I'm like, I feel like, oh God, I'm being noticed right now. Everything matters more. There's more pressure. And so I started to just cover my face. And when I started to do that, I just started to feel comfortable. And it shields my own tells a little bit, but it's more about me just feeling better when I'm at the table. So I might be playing a bunch of recreationals. I might be playing a bunch of Stephen Chidwicks, but I'm still doing the same thing. And it's more for myself. And it might help me like cover tells, but I don't think that many people are like paying attention. They're not like staring at my jugular or anything like that. But sometimes you can pick up subtle cues, like subtext to my behavior. And I was like, okay, why not just wear it? Like, who cares, right? And all of a sudden I felt more comfortable. And I think has it helped me 0.5% on my recent run of success? Like maybe. But if it makes me feel more confident, more comfortable, I think it's absolutely worth it. So.
Let's discuss the actual hand at the one you played against Aaron here in this video. Let me share the screen 1 second. If you want to discuss this real quick.
Miserable spot. You don't really want to call off.
So I open button. He 3-bets big line to 3x
without getting it all in. And you don't really want to get it all in with ace jack.
It's somewhat polarized when big blind.
There we go.
Gabe will disagree. He will get it with ace jack, goes for.
He was just terrorizing.
So this is the final table. How many people are left, and what kind of the stacks look like? Because you're raising button with ace jack here.
Yeah.
How many bigs is this?
So it looks like I think it's 50, 100K blind. So I had 24 bigs.
24. Oh, and he had 18.
Yeah, I started off as the short stack, and I basically ran it back up. I think there was like an 18 big blind, a 17 big blind, and like a 19 big blind stack.
How many left at this
almost
point?
Like a 4-way tie almost.
Yeah, it was pretty close. And if you go back on the video a little bit, you might be able to see some of the other stacks. It's not that important. But this guy, the very next hand after I bust, which is this hand, he 3-bets ace deuce suited against an open. And so it's like, I can for sure jam ace jack here and feel pretty good about it. And I just played like 5 hands in a row as well. And it's a button versus big blind configuration. Now, in hindsight, I think clicking it to like a mill kind of shuts down some of his bluffs, and I can just fold if he rips it in due to ICM. I thought about it a lot. I'm not sure if that's like the best move, but I think it's interesting. So
I think you got like a couple decisions pre. So like it depends on the other stacks. There's some shipping with ace jack off. When you do raise, you have to figure out if you're raise calling or raise folding. So then like when you raise and he 3-bets, you have to start like picturing if he has enough bluffs, like you said. The bluffs here are going to be like really polar, shitty hands. So he should have like ace deuce offsuit, and he should have like even hand like 10-6 offsuit, like really bad polar hands that he can't click call with.
I don't see the population we play against ever 3-betting 10-6 or something. Like every time
I agree.
They just wake up with it. The frequency of them 3-betting garbage, it's gonna still have some equity better than 10-6. They would do like the suited wheel aces and stuff, but it's very infrequent.
Those
at
aren't
the final table.
Supposed to 3-bet not all in. Those are supposed to just rip. So now you kind of get a situation where like you have to really kind of like give him hands he doesn't have in order to like 4-bet jam or put all your chips in here. So what I'm kind of getting at is I'm pretty sure he should probably just be folding. His hand ace queen should just be a jam on you. He shouldn't be 3-bet non-all-inning this hand.
Well, I thought he would be 3-betting pairs. I thought he would be jamming pairs. So I didn't even know if he would have like jacks here, right?
Yeah, he should be jamming just a lot. Your range should be kind of wide. And what happens too is people are really used to opening button in your spot with like the same button range. So maybe like 40% of hands, like a king 3 suited, a queen 6 suited. So at a final table, when you're button here, you should actually like tighten up a ton. You can't always just open up that same range that you would like day one. Mm-hmm. So like sometimes the button open range isn't 40%, it's 20%. But people don't know this. So like if I think Gabe's still opening that 40% instead of the correct 20, I'm going to be like even more aggressive in the big blind because I think you're too wide and you have too many hands that should fold. So I think I don't know if he's thinking all these things, but this is kind of like what goes through the mind of like someone who's looked at these spots. So I think with the general population, kind of like what Carl's saying, they're not going to have enough of the attacking hands that they should have.
Yeah.
So I would probably lean towards Muck this.
They play straightforward, and you got to play straightforward, especially in ICM spots. Ace Jack, I think, is not knowing the result, but Ace Jack is once he 3-bets, maybe you can call. I mean, Ace Jack off, it just doesn't play that well post flop, and the time he has you dominated with ace queen, ace king, you're gonna flop an ace and not know how to continue. Ace Jack suited is a continue probably. Ace Jack is like lean to it's tight to fold Ace Jack, but with the ICM and everything, I say get rid of it just because the 3-bets, when we face 3-bets against these guys, they're never showing up with bluffs. They just have it. This guy, Aaron, I think he's a cash grinder. Like he's capable. And obviously the ace deuce probably played a factor, seeing him 3-betting with ace deuce off.
Well, you should be happier if he jams all in. Now you can actually like be happy and call ace jack off because he should have shitty suited aces as jams. He should also jam offsuit ace x, like ace 3 offsuit can probably jam.
And it will put you in such tough spot.
Probably happier calling and then also like if I know he's a cash player, like Carl said, I don't think cash players are ever used to these short stack aggressive plays. They don't know to like 3-bet non all in a 10-6 offsuit or like a king 4 offsuit. So I think you like take away a lot of their like even if they're like a winning cash player, they could be like a great like 10-10-20 player. I don't think they'll have the knowledge of like the correct way to bluff this spot.
Yeah.
Because your hand is supposed to like mesh equity and make bluffs fold with a 4-bet jam with ace jack. But I don't think those bluffs necessarily exist.
That's why I thought clicking would be interesting because I might be able to like split his range and he would just ship anything that's like
then you lose half your stack though.
Yeah, but I'll just fold. It's ICM. Who cares?
I had to share the winning picture of that one tournament, the one you shipped.
That's a lot of chips.
That's a happy Gabe right there.
Dude, the next 2 or 3 days, I was on cloud 9, man. Like
waking up the next day is the best feeling.
You take all cash or do you get a check?
I took all cash and took pictures and sent it to my friends. So it was definitely plus CB move to take all cash there.
Hell yeah.
They escorted me out of the casino. I got security, and they sent this girl who was like 5'3" and this guy who was like probably weighed 140 pounds. And I was like, man, I'm defending myself if things get hairy out here,
Yeah, they also don't care about your money.
Yeah. Hard Rocks.
They don't give you a bag. They don't even have a paper bag to put the money in. They just give you stacks and just like go.
They put it in a paper bag for me.
They did. The few times I cashed big, they just give you the cash right there. You ask, do you have a bag or anything? No, nothing. I'm surprised they gave you a paper bag. Okay. I have a hand here to discuss from the Triton series. I thought it's pretty interesting. Blind on blind. Let me hear your guys' perspective. Let me share the screen real quick. This happened in Triton Jeju. It's a 100K buy-in. They're down to, I think, 15 players. It's between Chidwick and Igor Yaroshevsky. I hope I'm not butchering his name. Let's watch the hand here real quick.
These guys, right? Like Farabek wearing the exact same outfit and beanie and all that.
Yaroshevsky now, ace, queen suited, folded.
You need to understand that everything you do at the poker table conveys information.
Oh, we got to get you a YouTube Premium, Carl.
Like
Funny.
all loosey-goosey, having a sandwich
And be
on your
loosey-goosey,
phone.
guys.
Woo-hoo, baby, I love it.
You can skip.
There's
Might as well go with it. right? Because it's even
fun.
money. It doesn't cost you anything to wear the same outfit.
What about table composure? Chidwick has like the
Sure.
most amazing
For something else.
over table.
Benji's Rasty. I'm just saying it might run a little.
So it's
deeper
100K
than
buy-in.
that.
It's
Well,
final
there
two
might be
tables.
some people. I just think that the superstition
Folds
thing
to
is,
Igor, and
is
he's
not
got, like,
something deeply held by
40
by
bigs
many of
almost.
these-
Let's kind of recap the hand before it starts. So Igor is small blind versus big blind. I wrote it down here. You have Igor. Chidwick has 20 big blinds. Igor have him covered with 34 big blinds. Igor opens to 4x from the small with ace queen of diamond, pretty standard. Like Shane, you said earlier, we're gonna open in the small blind. You can play like a mixed strategy. Some people limp everything and open only like a polarized range with like their best hands, the ace queen, ace king, all the pocket pairs, some premium stuff, and the trash, like the complete trash that you don't want to go to flop with, like the 9-3 suited, or like complete trash that don't play well post, like ace deuce off, king 5 suited, something like that. So Igor decides to open the ace queen, and Chidwick decides to defend. They go to a flop of 7-8-5 2 hearts. So coordinated board. Igor obviously missed completely. In general, in my coaching sessions, like it's solver approved to check at 100% frequency or close to with Broadway cards, just because we don't connect at all with that board. Like,
You have showdown value as well, right?
What's that?
You got showdown value as well.
We got showdown value, and we just like you don't want to see better those boards, like all the coordinate boards, low boards, 5 high, 6 high, 7 high. It's like a check 100, and you just go from there. Chidwick has queen 10 off, decides to bet himself. He bets 20% pot. Igor goes in the tank and calls flop. Turn puts a 4-liner out there. The 6 makes a straight.
Could you fast forward the video and show the board on the screen?
Here, we'll play the hand. So the hand goes check, bet, call, and then turn comes with the 4-liners. Any 6 makes a straight. It goes check, bet, fold. But I just want to talk about Chidwick's line and why he decided to bet. Let's play the hand here.
These guys, right? Like Hrabek wearing the exact same outfit and beanie and all that.
Yaroshevsky now, ace queen suited, folded around to his small blind. Love what he's done with the time banks and that mini Triton trophy there. It's got a lot of flair.
That was such a big open, man.
Oh,
Yeah, I would never open this size.
I mean, you can open 3x, but you're never opening 2x. Like 2.5, 3, 4 is a little bit on the large side.
Yeah, I can see it doing 2.5 and 3.
Here.
4 is wild.
And unfortunately for him,
Even the solver approves 3.
His pot's already
2.5, 3.
up here. It's only a 2-to-1.
Chidwick has ace queen. Are we raising to a bigger size from the big line, or do you think you're still raising to your normal like 2.7, 3.2?
What was the question?
What was the question? I didn't hear the question. Sorry.
Hands, right? And it's Igor limps, and then your ace queen in the big line. And let's just say we don't jam. Let's say we raise.
No, Igor. You're saying in case Igor limps?
Yeah, I'm kind of like thought experiment. Like, what would the sizing be if it's limp to you?
Yeah, I believe this hand would just be a check back.
You can check back. You can mix here. You need to attack the small blind sometimes. But I mean, Chidwick knows that if Igor limps, he's limping also trash and good hands. So it's not like he can attack that limp. Like I see it live. The players we play against, anytime you limp the small blind, they think you're weak and they start like doing some weird stuff in the big blind. They start like raising. But these guys are so balanced that yeah, Chidwick might mix between opening and you're asking about the sizing. Same.
Yeah, are we
2.5, 3x
when the big blind versus blind, or are we just taking like a similar raise size?
I always teach in my coaching class that blind versus blind are the mistakes. Most mistakes are made blind versus blind because nobody gives respect to the other player having a hand. So these guys keep the pot small as much as possible. So I'm going to say, like Shane said, Chidwick is limping back and just they're playing post flop. I see amateurs making a lot of mistakes blind versus blind and blinds versus button. They never give respect to the other person having an actual hand.
To help with like a thought process from big blind here. So when small blind limps into you, big blind's going to ISO in a way that he doesn't mind folding. So maybe big blind has a hand like 7-8 suited. This is hands like a terrible ISO because small blind should have limp jams. So like if he limps and you like 3x 7-8 suited and they jam on you and you have to fold, the hand's incredible to play post flop. So like raise folding and losing 3 bigs is just a terrible strategy. So what happens is you end up like checking, and you want to ISO hands that are fine folding to jams. So and
The trash, basically.
called polar. So yeah, so big blind might ISO a hand like queen 6 offsuit against the limp, because maybe he can make like a hand like queen 7 fold, or like even like a king 3 fold. But then
Not
if they end
just
up jamming
that.
on you, you can just muck queen 6 and
Yes,
no one
and
cares.
it makes your life much easier post flop. When you open
Yeah.
queen 6 off, you don't have to make a hand. That's the whole concept of like opening pre. You open pre, you don't have to make a hand. You limp, you have to make a hand to win the pot. And plus having 20 bigs with I think 15 left, like your chips are so valuable, you don't want to make mistakes. And these guys make 0 mistakes in these spots, literally. Like they're not gonna leak any chips at this point of the tournament.
I think a rec might like look at the queen 10 hand in the big blind and be like, I've got 2 broadways. This is a good hand. I'm gonna raise this limper. But I think that is like is a little bit flawed, because what Igor should do is maybe jam like ace 5 offsuit, limp jam ace 5, or even limp 3-bet. And like queen 10 does great against ace 5. It's just like a 50-50.
Yeah.
And what you end up doing is kind of robbing yourself of all this like potential equity because you thought your hand was like medium to okay, like better than average. But in reality, we can just check and play this hand post flop with 2 broadways and lose the hand less, win the
Queen
hand
10,
more.
realizes equity well post flop. Like it connects well with a lot of boards. Any jack 9 board, jack 10 board, king queen board, all the Broadway boards. Anyway, let's see what. So Igor checks.
Shout out to Chidwick's mustache right here. It's pretty dope.
He misses this
Oh,
quite a
yeah.
lot. Chidwick
That's
could
majestic.
easily end up winning this by betting on the strength of the fact that queen high has very little showdown here, and this is a better flop for his range than his opponent's. So we can see he already does that off the bat, and this is already uncomfortable for ace queen of diamonds, right? Like you don't have a good way to improve. You can hit an ace or a queen.
That's what I
about
talked
it.
about
You don't
earlier.
have any backdoor.
We're gonna be
draws.
bluffing here, like all our like queen X and jack X, right? Like queen 10, jack.
In whose shoes? In Chidwick's or Igor?
Yeah. Like Chidwick's, right? Isn't that?
Well, I mean, Chidwick is just betting because he has the nut advantage on this board. Like he has a super wide range in the big blind. Like he has already flop straights. He has the 2 pairs. He has some sets. He has the 6-9, the 7-8, the 5-7, some 9x that would take that line too. All the hands with no showdown value, and the good hands like the flop straights, the 2 pairs. Sometimes like bottom pair and a like 5-6, 7-6, 8-6. He has a bunch of hands that connected with that board, and he knows Igor is not favorable on that board. That's why he started attacking.
There's some weird dynamic that they might be thinking about because Chidwick's really good. He knows that the size pre-flop should have been maybe a little bit smaller. So when this guy goes big, Chidwick might end up folding some hands that he might normally show up here with, like maybe like a queen 8 offsuit. He might just decide to fold because the size is so big. So like maybe there's like less top pairs. Even like 8-2 suited is probably like a hand that should call a small blind raise, but he might just fold because he went so big. I think Chidwick's betting this flop mostly for the reason that he has a 10 of hearts in his hand. There's 2 hearts. You can also make a better hand fold, like a king 3 would have to like check fold flop or something.
For sure. I wonder what Chidwick like is he going hard with like single paired hands here? Like is he still betting, I'm assuming like 8x for value?
On the turn?
Yeah.
You can start betting 8x here.
It'd be close.
How about this? Can you share the solver, what the solver is doing here, Shane, please?
Yeah, sure. On turn.
Let's see flop first. Like how many leads Chidwick should have on this board?
All right, I got it up.
1 second. Let me stop sharing myself. Go ahead.
It's sharing right now. Okay, cool. So this is when small blind makes it 3x because that's what the solver is going to do. And
Can you zoom in, Shane, a little bit so we can see it better?
It doesn't really let you that well.
It doesn't let you zoom in. Okay, that's fine.
Formats it.
Gotcha.
But this isn't assuming they're at a final table, right? So this is just going to be like what makes chips, not necessarily like the ICM dynamic. But
yeah,
this is small blind after he raises. He has all these really strong hands, aces, ace, king, ace, queen, solid hands. They don't really like piling chips in because the board's pretty low. It's a 5, 7, 8. And these hands can like check down and win sometimes. So it ends up betting.
You see all the broadways? All the broadways are checking. Like ace 10 suited, ace jack, ace queen, all the broadways, king, queen. Just kings is betting. Aces even checking. Queens are betting because they want some protection. Queens, jacks, 10s, 9s are betting because they want protection. And then kings, aces are checking. And then you have all the hands that actually connected with the board betting. Like see the 8x are actually doing some betting. The sets obviously like hand like 5-9, like bottom pair with gut shot. So any pair with like some type of equity, pair on a like a gut shot or pair with the open-ended, they're doing some betting.
And they bet large. This is a large size.
Yeah, those sizes are crazy, man. We're ripping or we're just betting like 3/4. That's
basically bet committing. Basically,
you'll never see them do this on Triton because there's so much ICM involved. But this is going to be how solver kind of plays.
Yeah, this is chip EV. It's not ICM. ICM, they're going to play slightly tighter than this. You're right.
And then once we check, this is what Chidwick's supposed to do to kind of attack us. So most of the size is going to be this 1/3 and this half pot size. And these are all the hands that bet, which is more than half the hands. And here's the queen 10.
You see all the 8x, Gabe, they're all betting. Like ace 8 all the way down to 5-8, 7-8.
I was just thinking on turn because like how polar are we going to be when we're betting turn here? It's like just all 6x and 2 pairs. Or...
turn he you know you can readjust if a Broadway card comes. Chidwick is going to slow down, of course, and if the card comes favorable to his range, like if it puts a 4-liner to a straight, Chidwick is going to continue betting. But if a king, queen, or a jack comes, or an ace, Chidwick is definitely slowing down, and the solver would slow down also.
Yeah, I'll show you that.
Especially on an ace turn, because Igor has all the ace-x checking because they have showdown value. Like almost all the Broadways, like the solver showed, they have showdown value, so those cards are going to slow Chidwick down.
I'll show you how to like maybe process this when the board comes like a 4-liner to a 6. What happens is it only checks like 18% of hands, and the other 82% all bet.
Chidwick, that's Chidwick, right?
This is for Chidwick, yeah. After already betting the flop. A really great way to kind of handle these spots isn't to even think about this 18%. Typically, like 80% and greater is enough for you to just like
do it 100%
and just bet every single hand. Yeah,
right.
It's going to take too much work, but generally, if you want to like dive deeper, the hands it checks are these turned pair of 4s. You could still barrel these if you wanted to. You can see the EV between like a check and a bet is basically kind of the same. So this is just to be like perfect in solver world, but when you're just playing a human, I might keep going.
Yeah.
And then to what Carl was saying, this is what every turn card possibly could look like. And this is like how often you're betting them and checking them. And you can see that like these 6, 7, 4s, these get bet a bit more than like when the turn's an ace.
Wow, this is really interesting. Look what he's doing on an ace, king, queen, a jack. Or ace, all the Broadway cards he's doing.
When a 3 of spades comes, we play 75% bet, but when an ace comes, we play 50% bet. Yeah, you're gonna just check a lot more.
Ace through 10, it's almost all 50%, right?
What's that?
And it's like ace through 10, it was all 50%.
Yeah.
And then
we're looking at this number down here. This
medium to low cards. Then we're
and then like a deuce is like a 75% bet. Yeah, these are
all the low
cards
reports. We're continuing, and all Broadway cards we're just slowing down.
Yeah. Yeah, this double barrel should get through a lot, and you don't have to do that big of a size. It's not like you have to go all in here. I think a lot of recreational players might maybe just jam this card when they have a 6 or when they have like a 7-8 hand, like a 2 pair, because they're like trying to price out a flush draw or something. But the reality is that this board's pretty locked down, and we have way more 6x. So we're just gonna like pressure with these tiny bets that make Igor's life pretty hard. So if we bet like a 1/3, he still has to fold a lot of hands. And
a 1/3, like you said, accomplishes the same thing as betting bigger. Yeah.
So is Igor basically like checking a bunch of 8x on flop, and that's all of his like hands, all his value hands, he's able to like continue with to like the turn bet by Chidwick?
For balance, you can check some top pairs. I do it in game when if I raise like an ace-8 suited and it comes 8 high, just because knowing that the big blind connects better with that board, I would check for deception and for balance. And of course, check call, check raise. All options are on the table, but you don't want to bloat the pot too much in this spot,
Like,
so you can check call
what
easily.
value does he even have on the turn here that's able to like call? It feels like he's getting just absolutely steamrolled.
You can see this too. So on turn, we should still have. Oh wait, this is in the wrong one. Small blind, big blind. Check, big blind bets a third. This is what Igor's going to show up to the turn with. So we should still have straights. We should still have sets, and we should still have second pairs. Those get to continue.
This is Igor's range.
Yeah.
Look
Yeah,
how
after-
Igor's range shrinks so much to continue on the like ace queen shouldn't even continue on that flop really because ace queen has no playability. It's actually continuing here. We can see it suited, ace queen suited, sliver.
Ace queen suit is just with the flush draw.
And look
and
how
that-
often it's folding.
It folds the ace queen with no flush draw.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Yeah.
just like 5x. We're supposed to continue with like 5x here. Oh god, feels so bad.
Yeah, any of these hands that like a 10-5 is just a shitty pair. You can see the call has like 0.01 EV or 0.12. Anytime you're at a final table, you should basically just be skipping these.
And this range is going to get tighter with ICM.
Yeah, so anything that shows up, even though it's all green, it says to like always call this. You should virtually never call this in this spot.
Yeah. All right, let's finish the hand and move on. Thank you, Shane, for the information.
Yeah, sure.
That's why blind versus blind is so interesting. So many combos of hands, so many different dynamics on like turns and stuff. It's great, man.
Amateurs make most mistakes blind on blind and blind versus button. You see them, stacking off with like very marginal hands on day two in spots where they shouldn't go broke.
Definitely agree. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's like the one cool thing about BVB is I think regs, at least at our level too, are just in a lot of trouble on handling a lot of decisions.
Say that again.
I think a lot of regs just get in trouble with a lot of these decisions too. I mean,
They do. It applies to everybody, not just amateurs. Yeah, they just don't. You never give the blind or the button respect for a big hand.
They're also really hard to study. Like the solves that we all just kind of looked at, there's just so many hands in the range. It's not like when you're under the gun and someone's on the button and the ranges are really tight. You have every hand. You have 70% of the hands. You've got 10-3 suited. You have to figure out how to play that.
But this isn't
It's
a
hard.
call and showdown. There's still another card to come, and we're looking at
Yeah,
that
Chidwick bets a
1.4,
fifth
and it's-
pot here. Real tiny.
That's sick. That's sick that sizing has like.
He
so much-
bets third pot, leaving $1 million behind. He bets 450 into 1.5 million and gets it done.
Ian does bin it.
And a very reasonable fold because of the exact reason that you just said. He's not showing down right now.
Yeah, I think it's well
You
played.
gotta love Ali Najad as a commentator. He's a beast. He does such a good job.
I think small blind can lose less chips there. Igor can play that better, and I think Chidwick played it perfect.
Yes, 100%. Let's see, Gabriel. Let's move on to some of the. I had a lot of questions still, but
Maybe some quicker answers. We can fire through some stuff.
I got a fun one.
yeah, let's fire some. Sorry, Shane. Go ahead.
After banking those tourneys recently, you buy anything cool?
No, I'm pretty boring. I buy books. Shout out to books behind me.
Shout out to books, man.
I drank some like scotch, so I kind of like celebrate with that. But like, I thought about buying a new truck, but then I know this is gonna sound like degen, but I was like, I'd rather just have the buy-ins for poker tourneys.
Yeah,
those are everything in buy-ins now. So
reasonable. We kind of covered a lot of these questions. Tips for managing bankroll effectively. How good are you with money management?
not very. I mean, ultimately, I don't spend a lot of money, so in that sense, it's good. All my money management really comes through poker. But like, I remember when I moved down here, like I was paying my buddy rent like 3 months in advance just in case, because I never wanted to be the guy who was like, oh, can I get a loan? It's like, no, that's a disaster. That's not GTO. So It's all poker related, and even poker related. I talked to you about playing online. Like my bankroll management was atrocious. And as I've matured and gotten older, I've become more like fiscally responsible. But I don't really see the value in like having things. Like books are really the only thing I like buy. I don't, go out and drink a ton. I don't really need like my truck doesn't like run great. That's the only reason I was thinking about getting a new one. Otherwise, if it gets me from point A to point B, that's good enough for me. So,
talking about books, what's your favorite book in that bookshelf?
Well, I'm a big Dostoevsky fan, and like Brothers Karamazov or Notes from Underground, outstanding. Book called Musashi, which is great.
What is it about?
It's about a samurai and discipline, being kind of introspective, and a big part of it's like understanding. There's a quote. It's like once you see the way broadly, you see it in all things, and it's I think kind of how you can attribute someone's skill or proficiency in one field and start to realize that those elements can apply to everything you do. And I think that's cool in poker, right? Because poker's so analogous to life.
That's exactly what I said about competitive sports. It translates to poker. It shifts to poker. Yeah. Question: have you had any adversity in your life? Because like to succeed in poker, you got to have a lot of grit, and facing adversity at some point in your life kind of like builds that. It's kind of like callus on your hands. You know how the hand, like the skin defends itself from like lifting weights or something. It builds callus, it thickens. Same. This is what what's his name talks about, callousing the mind. He's a big runner. He's a former Navy SEAL. What's his name? He's always about
Goggins.
David Goggins. He always talks about callousing your mind. So any adversity faced before poker?
Yeah, I got Goggins' book back here too. I was about to
shit.
out to David Goggins.
What's his shout out to the GOAT? What's his book's name?
It's called, man, you're gonna call me out and I'm gonna blank on it. Let's see if I can Can't Hurt Me.
Can't Hurt Me. Nice.
Yeah. Goggins is a beast.
Of course.
So my dad died when I was 3 years old. It was like an armed robbery. I was actually in the house when it happened. It's kind of crazy.
Wow.
And kind of through that was certainly a challenge, but I didn't like have like a strong relationship because I was so young. I was 3 years old.
Of course.
So, in some ways it's weird. I was like inoculated to it. And you develop like relationships. My grandfather was basically like my pseudo father for most of my life. He's just one of the greatest people I've ever known. And I kind of had to teach myself how to do a lot of things. My mother, single mother, just working, trying to make it. And, my sister, she kind of had like some PTSD from everything that happened because she was older. She was also there when it happened.
I was going to say, do you even remember the events? I'm sure you grew up around it and your parents talked about it later. I had a similar event. I was even younger. It was the war, like back home. But did you remember any of the events at 3 years old? I don't think you'll have memory of it. Do you?
I remember, it's kind of crazy. I remember my mother pulling up, and I actually remember like seeing his body in the house.
Wow, you actually remember this. This is great because obviously it's trauma. Like you actually grew up with trauma. Your life started with that's traumatic event.
Yeah.
Wow, that's sick. So yeah, that's adversity right there.
But it's weird because like when you grow up in that situation, I think having to teach yourself how to do things, it's one of those things when someone tells you a lesson, don't touch the stove.
Mm-hmm.
It's hot. It's easy to be like, okay, well, like I can just listen to you or I can just do whatever I want, right? But then when you touch the stove, you're like, oh, this shit's hot.
You learn.
And that's kind of just a thing where, so many different aspects of life you have to confront on your own. And you learn, when you're learning, your learning's it's gonna seep into you way more when it's truly involves yourself, right? And so since
it's kind of like going broke in poker. Nobody can teach you that feeling unless you actually go broke in poker. Did you seek any help for that, psychological, or you didn't think you needed?
I've been to therapy a few times,
okay.
Like 3 to 4 sessions. Nothing,
Did it help?
I think therapy's great, and I would say it helped a little bit just to talk about the experience.
Mhm.
But again, I've just developed on my own so much, and with my family as well, that there's always like, would you change anything? And I'm not sure if I would be who I am today if like that hadn't happened, right? And I really think I've learned a lot of valuable lessons. I've just really earned a lot of the things in my life. I've been very fortunate, very lucky. Like, don't get me wrong, but um, like a lot of the things I see, a lot of the mistakes I see other people make, I feel like I've been able to dodge those. And like I'm so proud of just like how I've turned out. And I know my mom, when I first became a poker player, she wasn't like super thrilled about it, but she knew that I kind of developed really well, and so
Natural reaction, yeah, of course.
she kind of trusted me. She's like, listen, just remember who you are. Don't try to have a fallback, but like I trust you. And
I've always
like,
thought you have a good head on your shoulders, for sure. You have that thing about you. I don't know how to describe it.
That
How
like
do you balance your poker career with other aspects of your life, such as family, hobbies? So what's like a hobby that you have right now besides, do you still play frisbee?
I started a little bit when I moved down here, but I just needed to devote all my time to poker for money. I was going through those downswings, and I just had to grind. I really don't do much. Like I'm a pretty boring guy.
Well, I mean, poker consumes your life when you're a pro. It literally consumes like 85% of your time. Basically, everything else is either preparing for the session or recovering from a session. So not much time to do anything else. You can find balance, of course, but if you want to like come up, it takes a lot of time. Definitely, you're either playing or studying. People don't understand that being at your level now.
I get a lot of meaning in life through like learning and growth, and I think poker, there's so much nuance. I like right now I'm like thriving just learning. Like I love like looking at that blind versus blind spot, man. I got my juices flowing. I'm like it makes me want to run a bunch of sims and just kind of like find spooky spots to put people in and stuff.
Looking at the Chidwick spot.
Yeah,
for sure. We're gonna have that in every podcast. Just discuss a hand. Can you share any tips for somebody coming up the ranks, somebody that wants to become a tournament pro? What to avoid, like mistakes that you've done that you would tell them to avoid?
I actually wouldn't give them advice. I would just tell them about all the low points that I've had in poker, and just tell them like this is going to happen. Like if you need to understand what like the bottom is. And I probably haven't even reached like in my poker career, like I probably haven't reached like what the worst run bat is of my life. Like it's been gone through some kind of gnarly phases early on. Like those first two sessions were not great. But if someone understands the threshold they're going to be pushed to, and they're comfortable with that, and they're tolerant with that, I think they're going to be able to handle the success, right?
If I could share a quote that's kind of been in the poker community since I got in like 2017, the quote is that you'll eventually run worse than you ever thought possible. And then like once that moment hits, there'll be another worse than you'll ever thought possible happen again.
See, that's when people quit. It's when the first worst happen, people quit because, they start questioning everything, or, when the money runs out, when the rent is due, and you got to find another solution other than poker. And mentally, you just can't perform at your best. Like, I don't care who you are. It affects you mentally at the table. You start making bad decisions, forcing things. You're miserable off the table. It affects your social life. People don't understand. And it is going to happen. Like, there's no two ways about it. You're not going to run good all the time. That downswing is going to happen, and it's going to test you. And people don't understand. They think, like, no matter who you are, you can be Phil Ivey. Jeremy talked about what's his name, the Spanish crusher, Conquistador, they call him on the EPT. Mateos, how he played like a whole Triton series and didn't cash once, not even a min cash. Somebody like Mateos, but of course he's playing the best in the world and some businessman, but he did not have a single cash, which is not a bad downswing. This is like one series, but let's move to the questions from the chat. There's a few of them. Clayton Antonios on Facebook asks, shout out to Clayton, what was the habit you had to kick that truly brought your game to the next level? Habit you had to kick.
Habit I had to kick. I mean, I think
Maybe he's talking about like playing loose, playing tight, punting some
yes.
spots.
I think playing cash, I play shorter sessions, which is interesting because poker tournaments last innately longer than, I mean, I guess you can just play a cash session for like 36 hours, whatever, but games usually don't run that long. And if I found myself tilting, I would just leave. Like, you know, and I get tilted way more in cash than tournaments.
You have that discipline, huh? You're disciplined in general.
I think it's because there's just like, and I know I told you I don't do much outside of poker, but I would just rather go home, hang out with Eric, read. You know, I work out a little bit, not as much as probably everybody, and you know, acknowledges, like not as much as I want to, but
right.
You know, I work out and I found value in that. And
when you say workout, does it include lifting weights, cardio, or just cardio?
Like I always start with
Both.
cardio and like stretch, but it's lifting weights. That's kind of, I did a lot of that in high school and stuff. But lifting weights is amazing. I love it.
100%.
And just playing shorter sessions, I think. I know some people think the opposite. Like you just need to play longer sessions as long as you're like playing your A game, or just find a way to like not tilt. But for me, like knowing when to leave, you would start to book wins, right? Like every time you don't feel great at a poker table doesn't mean that you just ran bad, right? I can just be like, oh, I went card dead for like 2.5 hours and I'm up $300. Like, guess what? I'm not going to book a 2K win today. Like, that's fine. And just leave. And then I'll just enjoy my dinner and I'll wind down and my life will be good. And I think
that discipline will set you apart from a big chunk of players for sure. Do you have a mental prep? Like, do you take any supplements for like nootropics or anything? We talked about this on the pod before. Any nootropics, anything to help you focus, or nothing? Just food and show up.
I take vitamin D, and when I play tournaments, I don't eat. So I fast the entire tournament. And if I do eat, I mean, I probably only eat like 10%, 15% of the time, maybe.
How about the meal before you show up? You're eating a meal and that's it?
I'll eat breakfast. Yeah, I'll eat like eggs and sausage. Usually.
And no food. Zero food during the tournament, the whole tournament.
Yeah.
No supplements. Do you take D3 with the K2? You know, K2 helps absorb D3, by the way. I just learned this a few weeks ago.
No. I've never taken that. Just D3. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, it comes with K2. You can buy it from Walmart. It's D3 and K2. Justin Fawcett on Facebook asks or says, "Sir, this guy is too good. We need more idiots on the pod." And then Jamie Smith, Poker News, you know Poker News, comments. He said he's saving the idiots for last, obviously. Fair enough. Chad Kitchen says, shout out to Chad.
Chad's a great player.
He says, my brother. I kind of like see Denzel Washington when he says, my man. He said, my brother. Then he says, by far one of the best players in Tampa that I played against. There are a few players that you don't want to see at your table, and he's definitely one of them. But love to play against him. Fair enough, Chad. Fair enough. Lana Nestor, shout out to Lana, on Twitter says, yay, Gabe, this one will definitely be worth a watch. What are you trying to say, Lana? The other ones are not worth watching? Obviously, Lana is a fan. You know Lana?
We chopped that one tournament.
Yeah, I saw.
I wasn't like a donkey like the rest of the crowd. Yeah. And so, you know, we chat about like hands and stuff like that, and kind of like a poker buddy.
Okay. You guys talk strategy at all or no?
Yeah, a little bit. You know, she sends me some interesting hands and I give her my critiques on them. You know?
2 cents. Nice. Antoine Bunkley, Big City Bunk. You know Antoine.
I finished second to him in that other tournament for 49K. And he's a really good player. I like the way he plays. He mixes it up. Anybody who mixes it up is
he okay. Does mix it up. Yeah, he's gonna be next on the podcast. I talked with him at Derby this weekend. He says, excellent player, tough post flop beast. Will put you in the blender and put you to tough decisions constantly. Definitely one of the rising young guns in Tampa, and I expect big things from him this summer in Vegas. Question. This is his question. How tough was it getting heads up again in the same 200K in Tampa, but unfortunately not closing it for back-to-back victories? Microphone emoji, basically giving you the microphone.
Yeah. I like the take. I'm down to rematch him at any time if he wants to throw some bones on it. I love playing heads up, by the way. We talked about the blind versus blind. I mean, essentially that's a form of heads up, and everybody wants to chop because I think they're afraid of playing more hands. And that's one of the great things about being aggressive is you play more hands, you put people in more spots, you're comfortable on a variety of different textures at different stack depths. And for me, like heads up is just so fun. I wish I could play like heads up cash. That would be outstanding.
Nice. Okay, back to my questions. How much studying are you doing lately? How do you approach studying and improving your game? And if so, like what method are you using? Books, solvers, talking to people?
Started studying a lot more. I mean, once I got the solver, I've been studying fairly consistently, every week. But for a while, it was only like probably 1 to 2 hours a week. You just play a session, you run a couple hands, nothing crazy. I moved back to Tampa. Like we've been in this apartment for probably like 2 weeks.
Where do you live, by the way? What area?
I live in Bell Channel side right now, so
okay,
downtown, which is pretty sweet.
Gotcha.
But I was probably for the 3 or 4 weeks before moving, I was probably studying like 8 hours a week. And I think the solver stuff, man. If you're going to study anything, and I've never used GTO Wizard, but like I highly recommend Pio. Run some hands.
The solutions are going to be the same, whether you use Pio, whether any solver is going to give you the same solutions. They're going to be very close. So it's not like you're going to use one solver or another, and it's going to give you a completely different result. Shane, do you have anything for Gabe?
Yeah, where do you get all the cool shirts from, man?
Oh, like the Hawaiian shirts, like the ones? Some of those I just got from like JCPenney and like Belk, and I just look for the kind of goofiest, craziest thing. And when I was playing poker, and really when I moved down to Florida, I was just like, I want to have fun and I want to not necessarily be like expressive, but I think like wearing like funky, crazy, cool shirts is, I don't know, it kind of brings some energy and zest to life. So I really don't like to be like hoodied up, which is interesting because I'll wear like the hoodie around my shirt. But,
yeah.
I think.
Oh, sorry.
No. You're good. You're good.
Before I got into tournaments, I was playing cash games for a long time, and it was all about having like a good image and kind of keeping the game good. And you weren't really encouraged to like bring a backpack and put on a hoodie and like scare away like recreational players. So typically when I see someone like maybe covering their face or doing something that like maybe intimidates like a fishy player, I tend not to like it. And I really try and be like welcoming of all these like people who are there for fun, which I think you do great at. You're super like lively and talkative at the table, which makes me not mind that you do the face thing so much, obviously, because you're not really like a cringy, sweaty guy who's trying to like intimidate all his opponents. You're just doing it to maybe hide your throat or whatever. But the general population, when they maybe like pull up, they try not to talk to anybody. They try not to be fun to anybody. They try and make it like a little bit cringier than it needs to be because it's just a game, So it's just me giving you props for how pleasant and fun you are to have at the table, despite you fighting hard and trying to win this game.
Yeah, when you're sitting at the table, how much of it is talking to other players if they talk to you, and how much that annoys you? First of all, if somebody's like constantly talking to you and you're trying to focus, does that put you off your game at all, or no?
I get really annoyed when I'm like 20 big blinds deep with like 15 left and somebody wants to chat. I'm just like, okay, like I got business, like we got to make some plays here.
I feel the same, yeah.
But if we're like early levels, even like past registration, I don't really care. Cash, I think, has way more table talk and socialization than tournaments. Now, playing a bunch of dailies or just like weekend tournaments, you run into the same people all the time, and you develop relationships and you chat, and I'm totally on board. And most people understand like where the line needs to be drawn. Like if you're in a hand, people like back off. They're not trying to chat you up and stuff like that. But I think just talking is so good for the game. And like the hoodie thing, I really only do that for like day twos or like late stages.
Yeah.
If I'm doing it in a situation that's not that, I'm either in like a weird head state, like where I'm just, something's bothering me, or I'm at a table full of like sickos and I'm like, okay, I just need to be dialed in. And my impression on them doesn't really matter, right? If they're all sickos, they're going to be playing no matter what, and I don't really care if I, want to talk about the game or whatever.
Let's get inside the mind of Gabe here. Just a random hand is happening. Day 2, like you said, you're dialed in. What is the thought process in a hand? So somebody open, you call. What is the first thing you're thinking about in the hand? What goes through your head in general? Like what's first, second, third, as far as everything?
I'm thinking of stack depth. I'm thinking of, this player's image and how much they've opened. I'm thinking about what my image is, what my hand is, and how I want to play it as a part of my range. Anybody who's behind me, is there like a caller in between?
No, I'm saying like they open, you call. That's it. It's heads up. What's going through your head? And I don't want to say anything, so I don't give you any information. I want to see exactly what goes on through your head. So you're thinking stack depth, their image, your image, and then
I'm just looking at the texture. I'm thinking about SPRs. SPRs I think in tournaments are like one of the most important things you can think about. You're going to make so many better decisions when you start to see turns and rivers in regards to like stack depth and like what your bet sizes need to achieve. So, and the same thing happens pre-flop, especially when we're completing out of the blinds pre. Like if we're going multi-way, we got to understand like, okay, there's 7 blinds in the pot right now, and if have reverse light odds in my hand, I'm pretty fucked. So we need to be really cognizant about what we're doing, especially if we're out of position. But when we're post, flops are pretty linear and automatic. Like everybody's kind of automated those decisions, and it makes sense because it's the thing that's happening at the highest frequency. Once we get to turns and rivers, everything gets more dynamic. The turn spots, a lot of leading, right? We don't want to step back. If we can start to balance out like our bluffs or made value. And we also start to, it's weird because like I check raise a lot on the flop to try and get like my betting lead back. If I'm trying to, get somebody to fold, or if I just have a hand that I'm down to stack off with, especially if my opponent's opening in a certain range. And then on turn, like donking, or, if we're getting checked to, turn is where like I overbet a ton. And I think you start polarizing, and you get people to realize like, oh shit, I'm like playing for every chip I have, and your bluffs are just gonna do wonders when you like realize what good turn sizing is and good flop sizing as well. I think people bet the same amount on flop too much, but ICM also impacts a lot of that. So ICM will come into play as well if that's more relevant.
Yeah, bet sizing, amateurs go, the only standard sizing they go for is like half. They go sometimes like half, third, or some stupid shit. Like the pot will be 80K and they bet 15K on the river. I don't know what they're trying to achieve. And it's like half pot. Those are the sizing that they know. It's never like overbet pot. It's never third pot on the flop. They always go for bigger sizes. They're always trying to protect. That's the only thing in their mind is that they hate somebody sucking out on them. That's the only thing they think of when they have value. And they under bluff spots, like the bluffs are like non-existent. So anytime they bet or they go to the turn, they either go with a very strong range or like very weak range. It's never in between. Especially when it's multi-way, it's a headache to watch, especially playing the low buy-ins at like Derby and Summit Hard Rock. Okay, are you calculating the math stuff, the pot size on every street? Are you keeping track of that, and what odds you're being laid on every street? Is that going through your
time? Yeah, and
at times, man, I'm doing it in every pot.
Yeah. I'm trying to always be ahead of that before it happens. Sometimes you're just churning through so much information that it's not going to be that simple. But I found myself early when I was playing poker, when I would take a lot of time during a decision, I realized I wasn't thinking about much. I was just taking a lot of time for no reason. And now I try to really only take time. If I have like a value hand, I just automatically know what I'm going to do with my hand. It's like easy. But you have to pace it a little bit. Or if I'm in the middle of my range, or I'm unsure like what my opponents, if their range is kind of wide, or if things are getting more complex with SPRs, then I'm definitely just churning through information. Like I think about all sorts of things, things that I've just kind of talk to you about. But
I see.
Think
I
about
see amateurs. You know how you said they're thinking, or you said you used to be thinking in spots where nothing's going through your head. You're just thinking. I see it in amateurs all the time when they don't have a plan. Like they would open a hand and never think if they get 3-bet what their thought process or how they're gonna react. See, I'm always thinking a step ahead. So when I open, I know if it's a bluff, and I know if I get 3-bet, I'm folding. So right away, I know what the action is gonna be. Some players, especially on day 2, they open, somebody 3-bets and they go in the tank, and you know it's a clear fold. Like I can put my bankroll on it that they're folding 100%, and they think for like 2 minutes for no reason. So it's not much going on up there. But when a pro does it, like, you know, he's doing it for a reason, going through ranges, going through the sizing, seeing if he's getting the right odds, seeing if the call with that hand will be profitable, how they're going to play post flop if they call, how big is the pot. It's actually they're thinking about the useful stuff, not just like being in shock, deer in the headlights, not knowing how to react to the 3-bet. Or, you know, on day 2, there's a lot of shoves. Like short stacks are going to shove behind you. Let's say you open 2-3 big blinds, somebody shoves like 8 big blinds. They don't know what to do. It'll be like a clear call or clear fold right away, and they just go in the tank for no reason.
Well,
stuff to watch.
Us being pros / like regs, we just played so much more poker that it's easy to take for granted, like, oh, I just face this spot all the time, right? So when the recreational who's only playing on the weekends, or, you know, a couple juicy tournaments that spread up here and there, it's because they're playing less poker, they're going to be confronted with a lot more unknowns than
I mean, if a rec like that does it, it's not that bad. But I'm talking about regs like at the Hard Rock that play that they've been playing for years, and they play all the time, and they still open. They get 3-bet and they go in the tank for no reason, and they fold like 90% of the time. They're getting rid of their hand. Is just agonizing to witness. Let's see if we have a couple. I think we covered a lot of interesting topics. We're at hour 42 minutes. I'm just going to ask a couple more questions, and we wrap it up in like we'll wrap it up at the hour 50-minute mark. How do you adapt the strategy when playing against different types of opponents? Because we know in poker, you never go in with the same strategy. Like every table is different every day. It's never going to be the same. So how are you adapting in real time?
I mean, I think being adaptive and exploitative is the only way to play. And, you know, Lockie, I think his podcast was great with you. He talked about some of that. I think if you're not capable of doing everything, then I just don't think you're going to be able to succeed. Like, you can just imagine yourself as like a tag, and that you're just going to be able to like ship the main, you know, in your like dreams. Like we all do it, right? Like think about, I'm going to win $12 million like Wyman or whatever next year. But like, I just really think that sorry, I lost my fucking train of thought.
No, it's okay. The question was, how do you adapt to playing against different types of opponents? So how are you adapting on a day-to-day when you know, in the big spots? I'm not talking about like a daily. I'm talking about like day 2s and stuff, the important spot. How are you adapting? Let's say you have like 4 or 5 regs to your left. What's different?
Well, I'm definitely going to find ways to. There's like this talk about like reg on regs, right? And our edge is on, you know, the weaker players, so we don't want to take a bunch of marginal spot against regs. And I kind of disagree with that a lot. And I think that as I like learn more about poker, and I like strive to be like really good, I see everyone as someone I can exploit, right? And that doesn't mean that I'm going to make like just an insane amount of money off of Mateos when he sits down at a table. That's like preposterous, right? But like, I think it's going to be a real challenge to shy away from a ton of spots against players, because they're getting dealt 2 cards just like you are, right? And their game might be pretty refined, but like, oh, what? Because this player's good, I can't bluff him? I think that's like ridiculous. And so for me, I try to put pressure on everybody. Now I might not put as much pressure on certain players, or I might dodge a spot because it's, you know, there's several things, you know, dynamics on the table that are always like, you know, kind of shifting, and it feels maybe unnecessary to take certain spots. But I think it's pretty dumb to say like, oh, I should stay away from like this reg. I kind of embrace that. I love playing against good players, and I think that's another thing, like with confidence. Like, you're just going to get sat down at tables where there's 5 regs, 6 regs, and you got to be ready for what's in store.
Especially day twos. Yes.
So I don't know, being adaptive. Like I'm prepared. I feel like in almost any scenario to everything's just a new context, right? Like I can't get tilted because all of a sudden Shane, Carl, Clyde, and whatever other Tampa reg just got sat to my direct left. Like I could be like, okay, well, this is just a dynamic I'm going to have to interact with, right? So what are my hands and what are my decisions that I have to make? That's going to happen in every tournament you play, especially the deeper you get. There's going to be some good players at final tables, final two tables. Like you got to be ready for what's in store, man.
In general, the deeper you are in a tournament, the better the players, and then you have the few guys that got lucky and got a big stack. Chad Kitchen, another comment today. He said, "I don't have a question for Gabe, just a comment. Can't wait for the next time we are at the table together. You raise the bar." Damn, a lot of compliments from Chad. Let's wrap it up with local rooms. That's like a staple in every podcast. Local room rating. You played in all the rooms. Hard Rock, Hard Rock, Derby, Silks, TGT. You played in all of them.
Silks, and that's it. I've only played in Hard Rock.
Once at Derby, once at Silks.
Just once at Silks for that big bounty that ran sometime last year, and that's it. Otherwise, just the Hard Rock.
And Derby, you played at Derby, right?
No.
You've never played at Derby?
No.
Wow. So you're like a legit Hard Rock grinder.
Yes, sir.
Damn. Okay. So I guess you can't rate Derby because you don't have the experience there. You played at TGT ever or no?
No.
Not even at TGT. Wow. So we can't ask you that question. Doesn't apply. You can't compare. Okay, guys. I guess this is it. See you. Thank you for coming on, Gabe. Shane, thank you for co-hosting.
Sure. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Carl,
Good chatting with you.
I really love your Instagram and you shouting out different local players, whether they're Rex, whether they're regs. I think it's super great. You put kind of advertise a bunch of the local rooms. This podcast I think is super cool. Just talking to different players, hearing their stories, hearing their thoughts on poker, their lives and stuff. I think everything you do for poker is dope. So just keep going. And I think I don't think you're discouraged by anything, but don't get discouraged. I want more of this content. I think it's really, really cool.
Yeah, that's really nice of you. It's a nice way to end this podcast. Very nice of you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, anything I love the game, this, and anytime I see somebody, lack of better terms, shit on a local poker room, I feel bad because we want to do everything possible to grow poker locally because we don't have that many. Like now the rooms are starting to compete, TGT, Derby. And I help both of them. I'm not like a one agent for one room. Anybody that wants help to grow poker locally, I'm for it. Because I think there's so much potential in Tampa and they're not reaching their maximum potential, not even close as far as tournaments. Because the only problem we have with tournaments, it doesn't generate that much revenue. And they're always like trying to build up the cash games and the promotion and stuff. So tournaments are kind of like the black sheep. So that's why I try to always push them just to better Hard Rock is always going to be the beast that everybody's trying to catch up to. And anything we can do to help the small rooms, we just need, then again, we need more series. Like we don't have enough series in Tampa. Hard Rock has that problem with the location. They only have that ballroom once a year. We need to have more stops in Tampa. So if the small rooms can have each of them 2 stops with Hard Rock, people don't have to travel except to Vegas. But now we have to go Hollywood, this and that. We should have the same thing that Hollywood has here in Tampa. We don't need to travel anywhere.
I think soon there's a big two company tournament, the TGT one coming up.
Well, I'm gonna film here. Shout out to Jacob Mass. Jacob is trying hard. Yes, that tournament is going to be probably their biggest guarantee. It's 500K guarantee. I think it's 400 buy-in. Yeah, that's great. We're going to shoot a little commercial here and he's going to spread it on social media. So yeah, anything to grow local poker, I'm for it.
Also, Shane, I want to give you a shout out because you're an absolute beast and I love playing poker against you. Every time I see you playing against other players, it it's kind of a marvel, watching you do certain things, make certain decisions. I see you, Fred, and Clyde, and I'm just sitting there man, you guys are doing some interesting things. And I anytime I'm in a hand with y'all, I feel like everything's at stake. And it's my most exciting, poker experience is just battling with some of the best players. So
Oh, cool.
Just wanted to, give you that shout out. So
I appreciate it. Thanks, man.
All right, guys. Ending recording now. Thank you so much for coming on.
Peace.
deuces, y'all.
Peace.